What is up, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Aaron Knoll, and welcome back to the Movie Battleground. This is it, guys. We have had one hell of a premiere week to relaunch the show. We've had multiple great matches already this week. If you haven't seen them, I won't spoil them for you. Be sure to go check them out. But to end our kind of relaunch series of videos, who better to do it than the man who was last named champ prior to the show's hiatus, and the unfortunate soul who got randomly paired against him. That is right. We have Mr. Joe Farrelly returning to the battleground, going up against a man who likes to call himself JakeTato, Jake Riese, in his first ever Movie Battleground match. As you guys will see, is the unfortunate reoccurring pattern, the random wheel that was used to select the matches, like setting up these oddball matches. But as we've already seen, whether it's rookie on rookie, rookie versus vet, or vet versus vet, nothing to be expected could happen. So we will see what happens here. With that said, I'll go ahead and have a brief talk with our competitors before we get going. Coming in first as the man who is the favorite, he is the man who is last named champ prior to Movie Battleground going on hiatus. He does return with that champ title for now, but his record is reset to 0-0, and he will be playing alongside all of our competitors. It is Mr. Joe Hot Fuzz Farrelly, and if that title doesn't date the recording of this video, I don't know what will, but who cares? What's up, Joe? How's it going?
Yeah, it's going pretty well. It's going pretty well. England's just made the Euros final, so I'm in a good mood. It's been a while since I've had a good argument online, so I'm looking forward to this. Slightly restructured, but we'll see what happens. And it's debate. No studying really goes into it. You can prep, but there's no real studying. So the fact that I'm the champ, I think, or the former champ, I don't think means a lot.
Absolutely, yeah. And so so to explain to people briefly, there is a more detailed explanation of it either on the channel or on the Facebook page. At this point, I haven't decided, but we'll find out in the future. So there is a more detailed explanation out there, but to explain kind of what happened with Joe, Joe was named the champion of Movie Battleground prior to an unplanned hiatus. The people who were previously running it, whether it was due to personal reasons or due to helping set up TMG Trivia, it was just a split of time, and unfortunately Battleground went under the wayside for a little bit. Because all the records were scrapped, and I know Joe as well, even in the impending time, I know he wanted to be kind of a playing champion. He didn't want to just sit there and wait. So the option I came up with is his record was also scrapped, but in fairness to him, because it's not his fault that he lost the title, he has what is called a champ's token, which means obviously he has this one play-in match. Whichever way this goes, he will be in a tournament. During the tournament, at any point, if Joe loses a match and he is eliminated, he will be given the option in his post-game interview to activate his champ's token. If he does so, he will be reinstated as champ no matter what his record is, but he will have to defend against the winner of the 1-0 tournament. Should be said, there will also be a 0-1 tournament contender, and the semifinalists of both tournaments will quickly be pitted against each other. So there will be 3 quick contenders for him to play should he end up in that position. But it's all's fair and fair. I want to give him the chance to defend if he ends up in that position. If Joe does the unbelievable, makes it all the way through, wins a tournament, and wins the belt, he will be allowed to keep that champ's token. Should he lose it at any point, he will have the opportunity to automatically re-challenge for it. Won't take it away from him just because he played well. And then the other option is if he chooses to not use it at that moment, he will still keep it, but he will have the ability to challenge after all 3 of the contenders that come from the tournament have played a title match apiece. So with that said, before I move on to Jake, Joe, how are you feeling coming into this, and how are you feeling about your competitor?
I'd say Jake's relatively untested in debate, but for me, it's always going to come down to the arguments, and that's what I like about this, is that you have to plan what you're going to say to defend your point, but you've also got to look at what they're going to say to not only defend their point, but to also attack yours. There's no perfect answers apart from which superhero wins the Hunger Games, because it's Dr. Manhattan every time. But you have to find out where the weaknesses in your argument are. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Missed a good argument, but let's hope I can do what I seem to be doing in TMG, which is just coming in and winning titles.
I like the confidence. All right, Joe, I'll drop you to the back. We'll see you in just a minute as I bring in his opponent. He is also 0-0, making his Movie Battleground debut, Mr. Jake Riese. How's it going, man?
Not too bad. Thank you for having. Pretty excited to get in some bait. I agree with everything Joe said about how it works, and looking forward to a good match. I've seen him play TM Geek. He's fantastic at that. I assume he is equally good at debate, so looking forward to a fun one.
Absolutely. So I have just one question for you before we get on to the actual match here, and it's you and two other lucky gentlemen, one by the name of Sean Hunter, who we've already seen play, and Steve Mesa had the glorious opportunity to be randomly assigned as rookies against a former champion of this league. So just very basic question. What was your feeling when you found that out, and what's your feeling now?
It's awesome, and it's still awesome. I love it. And if I lose, hey, I lost to the best. You can't ask for more than that. And if I win, I beat the best, so that would be even better.
Fair enough. I like the attitude. All right. We'll go ahead and bring both gentlemen in. We will get this started very shortly, but once brief over on the rules here. So the Movie Battleground debate, they were given 4 questions each. They had time to prepare prior for the match. The way that this will work is each question will consist of 4 stages. There will be a 1-minute opening for each competitor. It is already predetermined prior to the match that Joe, as the favorite, will go first on questions 2 and 4. So that means Jake will start us off with question 1. With that said, there will be 1 minute of opening. There will then be 2 minutes of a kind of flesh out round where you can expand on your argument without your competitor trying to impede on you. You will then have 4 minutes of open debate. This is where the time is on the table. Scrap, fight for it, do what you can to get your points out, and that will be followed by 1 minute of closing. Each competitor does have a 1 minute extension that can be used on any of their solo speaking times, so their opening, their flesh out, or their closing. If you want to use it, please let me know at the start of the debate. So before either of you give your opening, just let me know where you would like the minute added to, and that will be made thus. I am not alone in this battle, though. I am also joined by 3 great judges who are currently backstage. Mr. Austin Howell, JB3, and Henry Sanchez are here to judge this battle for me because, God forbid, I don't need that stress. But with that said, let's go ahead and get this underway. And I feel like this is a bit of a fun one. Obviously, we all know that the competitors are allowed to select a strength. And if you know anything about one of these competitors, I think it becomes obvious where the strength came from. But with that said, it's a fun twist on just asking a best or worst question about the franchise. This really tests them, and their answers will too. What is the most overrated James Bond film of all time? We're not looking for the best, the worst. We are looking for the one that most people love that you feel is overrated. With that said, Jake, you're going to go ahead and get us started. I will drop myself to the back, and your first minute of time starts when you begin speaking.
I went with Goldfinger on this one. A good Bond film, to be sure. But, like, it's rated 99% on Rotten Tomatoes with an audience score of 89. It's just good, but there's flaws in it that I will explain a little bit later, perhaps, that just make it not worth the rating that it gets.
All right, so you see the rest of your time?
Yeah.
Okay, that's absolutely fine. All right, so with that said, Joe, you have 1 minute to open. Time starts when you begin speaking.
The James Bond series has seen many different eras, each actor giving their own interpretation and each having their films geared around their specific skill set. And there are great Bond movies, there are good Bond movies, and there are bad ones. For Your Eyes Only is okay. But when people talk about it, you'd think it was the best of Roger Moore's Bond films. People rate it highly because it's a return to the more gritty, down-to-earth Bond that sort of Connery and Lazenby instilled. But Moore's Bond doesn't sit in that era, and that's why For Your Eyes Only does not deserve the praise it gets.
All right, and he will cede the rest of his time by the looks of it. All right, so your 2 minute expansion period starts for Jake when you begin speaking.
Alrighty, so as I said, 99% rated on Rotten Tomatoes. However, this movie has people throwing hats as weapons. Or at least one of them. You're painting chicks to death in this movie. How is this movie getting 99%? Jill, Tilly, useless. Nazi gold, no one wants to be associated with that at all. So while still a good movie, just not worthy of the 99% that it gets. And I know this is not entirely based on Rotten Tomatoes, but that's what I'm going with for that one. And I will cede my time.
Okay. All right. A ballsy move to cede the time there, but I respect the confidence in what he's presented. Joe, time starts when you begin speaking.
Well, first off, we all know that Rotten Tomatoes is a consensus. It's not a rating system. It just means 99% of people thought it was not a bad movie. And who wants to be associated with Nazi gold? Well, German criminals for once, which is what Auric Goldfinger is. But For Your Eyes Only, it tries its best to get back to what Connery did. It even opens with Bond killing Blofeld, except we'd never call him Blofeld because of legal issues. And even so, you don't kill off Bond's greatest villain in a pre-title sequence. Moore's Bond movies work best when they are over the top. But The Spy Who Loved Me is by far Roger Moore's best. It has the campiness and the joy that Moore excels at. But in this movie, Moore is trying to be Connery in a movie with a less than interesting plot, a rather one-dimensional leading lady. Goldfinger is considered one of the best Bond films of all time. From Russia with Love, Casino Royale, and Skyfall, usually the only three that often compete with it for that top spot. And there's a reason for that. Apart from those three movies that I've just listed, if you can find another Bond movie that deserves its place above Goldfinger in the top four of Bond, I listen to, but there aren't. For Your Eyes Only, they use the term actually. It's actually not that bad. It's actually good, but it really struggles to do what that era of Bond were doing well, and that's why it's overrated, because it misses the mark completely.
All right, I'll take the silence as a ceding of the time. I like both gentlemen coming in with the confidence to not need all of their time. With that said, 4 minutes is on the table for you to scrap for. The timer will start when one of you speaks.
The thing about Goldfinger that you have to remember is it's pretty much the first Bond film to introduce the car with the gadgets, and it gave us the Aston Martin DB5 of all cars. It gave us the femme fatale, the female that was the sort of the villain, but she turns good in the end, and it's pussy galore. It's fantastic. The henchman with a unique method of killing, and his odd job with his steel-rimmed bowler hat. And the thing is, it gave us all those things as a jumping-off point, but there's very few Bond films that have done it better since then. 57 years old, that movie, and still considered one of the best.
I will grant you the Aston Martin is pretty cool. And I cannot name a Bond movie that would be more worthy of the top four, but fortunately that's not really relevant to the situation here. Kung Lao in a Bond movie, cool. And I will go with and I will throw out, since I threw out the Rotten Tomatoes for the other one, it's 73% Rotten Tomatoes versus 64 audience there. So if anything, the audience and critic rating is a 1% difference in favor of Goldfinger. I'm not overly in the Bond community, so I don't know what people are saying about these things, but I did read that it is a more down to earth. For Your Eyes Only is much more down to earth and kind of tone things back. But the way I saw it when I was reading it was, you said For Your Eyes Only is okay, and most people also seem to say For Your Eyes Only is okay, whereas everyone says Goldfinger is amazing, and it's good, I'm sure, but it's just, to me, not 99% worthy, and I'm sorry to keep harping on that tactic, but
that's exactly the point. You said yourself you can't name films other than the ones I mentioned that are better than that, so it must be appropriately rated, if that's the exact point we're getting to. The thing is, we see the start of everything in Goldfinger of where Bond's going to go from there, but no other movie since Goldfinger has done it better. Even the title song by Shirley Bassey is fantastic. Gert Frobe has a fantastic performance as Goldfinger, but you waste Julian Glover, of all people, as a villain. You don't waste people like Julian Glover, and that's what For Your Eyes Only does. It tried that. By the time Moore had gotten to that point, we'd had Moonraker, we'd had The Spy Who Loved Me, we had The Man with the Golden Gun and Live and Let Die, and they were a lot more campy. They were a lot more, a little bit sillier, but that's what Moore did. And when they tried to get back to For Your Eyes Only, it went away from it, and it didn't feel like that it was the right movie for Bond. So saying it's good actually doesn't really tie with For Your Eyes Only, and that's why I think it's an overrated movie. People say it's good actually, and when they're looking at it on the surface, when you delve deeper, you look at Julian Glover as the villain, you look at the fact that they killed off Blofeld in a pre-title sequence. It all just doesn't fit with what a good Bond movie is.
I got nothing.
All right. So, Joe, if you have anything more to add, you can. If not, I can see the time. We can move on to closing.
That's the thing. I would just say that, well, the consensus around the ranking of Bond movies is actually remarkably consistent wherever you go. You look at those lists, you look at the lists of the ranking all the Bond movies, Die Another Day and Octopussy, rightly so, down the bottom. Skyfall, Casino Royale, From Russia with Love, Goldfinger, always ranking in those top spots. And there's a reason for that. It's because they're good. For Your Eyes Only sits always somewhere in the middle, but actually it should be a lot lower because of what it does to what's already been established. And I mean, I keep harping back to it, but the fact they kill off Blofeld in that pre-title sequence without naming him, it's not right. And and you waste an actor like Julian Glover. The only redeeming feature it has is that the much older Roger Moore turns down the advances of an 18-year-old girl. That's pretty much its only redeeming feature, and probably the only redeeming feature.
And time. All right, so we did make it to the end of that 4 minutes. You both have 1 minute to close. Jake, time starts when you begin speaking.
Just gonna reiterate my point. I just can't see a movie at the top when and I know Bond is ridiculous, but skin suffocation and the whole hat throwing thing to me is just too silly to be in a movie of that echelon. Whereas For Your Eyes Only is more in that realm. That's just in the okay realm, and I think it is correctly rated in the okay realm. Seed.
All right. And Joe, you have 1 minute to close. Time starts when you begin speaking.
As I said, the usual justification you find around For Your Eyes Only being ranked as an okay movie is the word actually. It's actually okay. But it tries to go back to those themes of the Connery era, but The Spy Who Loved Me and The Man with the Golden Gun and Moonraker were all about what Roger Moore did. The fact of the matter is, the car chase is in a yellow Fiat. You kill off Blofeld in the opening title sequence. You waste Julian Glover, who is a fantastic villainous actor. And the plot itself, it's trying to track down a device and stop the Russians getting their hands on it. That's basically the plot from Russia with Love. It copies the plot and it does not do it as well as From Russia with Love either.
All right, and that will be the first debate over with. Come back on screen. Thank you, gentlemen, to the both of you. Solid first round. Welcome back to the game. I'll go ahead and drop you guys off screen, and I will bring on our three judges in order, Mr. Austin Howell, Mr. JB3, and Mr. Henry Sanchez. They will have about 30 more seconds to finish up any decisions they may need to make. Not that this should impact it at all, but I decided for the sake of facts, everything score-wise that was said was correct. For anyone curious, aside from the like rating where the films fall out of 10, Goldfinger does have an 8.6 out of 10 on Rotten Tomatoes based on its reviews that have been inputted. For Your Eyes Only sits at a 6.4 out of 10 based on the people that have reviewed it. With that said, all three of you guys look pretty ready to go. So I will start with Mr. Austin Howell. Welcome to the Battleground. This is your first appearance here at all. So in about 30 seconds or less, give me who won this for you and what was the main point that sold it.
Oddly enough, despite his somewhat weaker arguments, Jake won this for me only because the question asked about overrated, and Joe's points for me and more emphasized the fact that his movie was mediocre in the first place and didn't really explain a whole lot why it was overrated. And I think despite Jake's arguments being a little weaker, I think he was at least trying to make the overrated point, so my point goes to Jake.
All right, absolutely. It's a very valid point. Everyone reads this how they read it. Mr. JB3, unlike Austin, who gets to make his first time doing this, if people used to watch Battleground, you did this like any old Tuesday night. So how are you doing, man? Welcome back. And in 30 seconds or less, where does the vote go for you?
You must like hot pizza fast and ready to go. It was a nice debate. It looks like, for me, it was really content based on this choice, and the conceding in the debate round, and a lot of the concedes really got it because Joe was just throwing out so many reasons, and I think that Joe had a couple more rebuttals, so that really made good points. So I picked Joe.
All right, so it is 1-1 on votes, which means we move on to Mr. Sanchez. In 30 seconds or less, tell me who won it for you and what was the point that won it.
So you can definitely tell this was a strength category because, like JB3 said, it's one of the things where more stats were shot out by Joe, and technically Austin's right where Jake might have won the argument based on semantics, but the argument, like, there was just more backing from Joe. You know, like when he was talking about like Goldfinger is campy and stuff, and he's like, yeah, but it's a Nazi villain. You had the iconic car and the villainous. It really started that part. So I'm gonna go with Joe because I really feel like he was able to, despite the fact that his movie might be mediocre, it's praised for the wrong reasons, and that's not necessarily, you know, technically good. So it's overrated in that regard. So I give it to Joe for that.
All right, there we go. So first point goes to Joe. Thank you, gentlemen. We will see you in just a bit as we drop them off and bring our competitors back on. So point number 1 goes to Joe, but there is still a lot of game to go. And just based off the amount of back and forth in the chat, question number 2 is one I know there will certainly be some interesting discussion about. And this is one of the more creative questions we've had thus far in our first week. But with the Suicide Squad going to theaters tomorrow, August 6th, makes sense that the question would be, what is your perfect Suicide Squad roster? Now, the only definition I set was a minimum of 5 members. However, both of these gentlemen have also set the implication of picking all characters from films. So this is a real creative, real mix and match of characters coming from different movies to be with each other. And I think this will be a really entertaining match. Joe, you have opted to go first on this round. So with that said, you will have a 1 minute to open. Your time starts when you begin speaking.
So far, we've had one very poor Suicide Squad movie. But if the trailer for James Gunn's is anything to go by, that's about to be rectified. It looks fun and very tongue-in-cheek, which is what I think a Suicide Squad movie should be. So obviously, Harley Quinn is a must-have. But she needs a Joker, but not one like Jared Leto's. It didn't fit that world, and I don't think Ledger's would fit either because I don't believe he's a team player. But I think Cesar Romero's Joker is perfect for this world. We need someone who can provide the wit and the quips. Cesar Romero's Joker is perfect fit for this world. We also need someone who can provide the wit and the quips. And like Stallone voicing King Shark, we need a big action star. That's why I want Schwarzenegger's Mr. Freeze in there. We need some. We also need someone with some weaknesses. So I've gone for Nuclear Man, Cillian Murphy's Scarecrow, and Batman and Robin's Bane for the muscle. I think this is the perfect Suicide Squad. It fits all the things a team needs, and Amanda Waller's going to have some trouble with this one.
And time. And yes, it should be said, in case anyone is a real Suicide Squad fanatic, I did give the gentleman that Amanda Waller in basically all editions is in charge, so you don't have to name her as one of the people. But we do have Harley Quinn, Mr. Freeze, Scarecrow, Cesar Romero's Joker, Nuclear Man, and Bane as our first of 2 teams. Jake, time starts when you begin speaking for your 1 minute opening.
I also have Harley, so we'll just leave it there. I did go with the Ledger Joker. I got Deathstroke, Joe Manganiello. Jim Carrey's Riddler, of course, and I went with Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman. So I got a bit of a mix, too. There's some thievery, there's some trickery. Yeah, and I will cede my time, and we can go from there.
All right, there we go. Using the opening just to intro the team, and I will flash that on screen as well. Harley Quinn, Deathstroke, the Riddler, Heath Ledger's Joker, and Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman are the 2 teams vetted against each other. We go to the 2 minute flush out. Joe, time starts for you when you begin speaking.
So I think there's all certain things that a team needs. It needs the badass, and that's Harley Quinn. It needs the muscle. It needs the weak-minded muscle, and that's Bane. It needs the brains. That's Cillian Murphy's Scarecrow. It needs the wild card, which I think is Cesar Romero's Joker. it needs someone to provide the wit and the quips for someone who's got a bit of a plan about them. I think that's Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze. But also, you need something that's a little, especially for a Suicide Squad, you need someone that's a little bit different, like you're going to see with Polka Dot Man, for example. And that's why, but someone who's also got a little bit of a weakness, something that works in sort of like a movie sphere. And that's why I went with Nuclear Man. You know, he has pretty much the same powers as Superman, except he's got those lovely radioactive nails, which I think works well with the Suicide Squad, a bit of a weird power in there. But he's also got the weakness that he can only come out in the daylight. He's powered by the sun. I think that just gives the whole team a little bit more of a dynamic. It gives the other characters something to quip on, but it also gives it binds them together. Cillian Murphy, I think, is the perfect idea for the brains because he has that plan, and Cillian Murphy's just so devilish in that role. He plays it perfectly. We haven't seen Schwarzenegger in so long. Bringing him in like this, putting him alongside Harley Quinn and Cesar Romero's Joker and all these other characters would, I think, fit perfectly with the role he portrayed. And we've seen what Stallone appears to be doing with King Shark in the new Suicide Squad movie, and I just think the sort of mindless muscle that's just going to turn up and hit things is where Jeep Swenson's Bane from Batman and Robin is going to fit in perfectly. This is going to be a crazy team. It's not going to go well, but that's what Suicide Squad is. Amanda Waller, Rick Flag, good luck, because this is going to be tough.
All right. That will be the 2 minutes. Jake, same thing starts for you. Time starts when you begin speaking.
Alrighty, so Harley Quinn, again, we know she's the badass. She is her part. We're on her. We're rolling with her. I did go with the Ledger Joker for the reason that it is a little more of a chaotic Joker, and for the reason of that's what the Suicide Squad is, as you mentioned. Deathstroke is my muscle and kind of more of a he's kind of the half brain, half muscle thing. So it's not the dumb muscle of Bane, but you get like that soldiery aspect of the character. Riddler, I went with for, again, the funny chaos here. We have to have those quippy bits. Sorry to keep reiterating Joe's points, but and then Catwoman, I went with for the thievery, for the sneaking into places. You know, every good Suicide Squad needs that. And I will cede my time.
All right. It's absolutely fine. So with that said, we have 4 minutes on the clock for open debate round. The time will start when the first of you speaks.
We've already seen that Cesar Romero's Joker is a team player. We've seen it in Batman movie 66. He works perfectly in that team, especially when the Penguin is listing out everything that's going to happen, how they're going to get Batman. You know, he's going to step on the secret Jack in the Box, and he's going to fly out into an exploding octopus. So, and he's got those wonderful little jokey gadgets as well. Heath Ledger's Joker's not a team player. He's shown time and time again throughout The Dark Knight that he cannot be part of a team. He does not want to be part of a team. He wants to be in charge. He will not take orders, and he would never be a part of that team. You've got Deathstroke as the muscle. I can see it. The problem is we've only seen him in a post-credit sequence, Joe Manganiello's Deathstroke. He hasn't shown anything that proves that he could be the muscle of a team. Lex Luthor's clearly trying to start one, but you can't see it. Riddler, funny and quips, but again, has he really got anything else about him? And as opposed to Catwoman's sneakery, it's good, but she hasn't got the powers of Superman. The Nuclear Man does. He can do it during the day. Catwoman's only going to be able to do it at night.
Yep. You're right about Joker not being a team player, and that's why I want him on this mission, because of the suicidal nature, maybe, perhaps. And he's a little crazy and half suicidal himself, I guess. So I think he, while not a team player, will somehow work on this team. And I kind of want to see how Harley interacts with him. Deathstroke, like you said, we have only seen him in that post-credit scene, but he looked pretty badass in it, so I'm going with that. Riddler.
I'll give you that, but even from that very, very brief scene we saw him in, he clearly only has an eye for Batman, and he's only got one of them. So is he really going to be focused on a mission that Waller gives him?
Touche. Perhaps not, but isn't that the point of the Suicide Squad? I'm falling flimsy on this one. That's all right.
Bane's the weak-minded muscle. You know, he out of all of those, he's definitely the expendable one. The tagline for this new Suicide Squad movie is "Don't get attached," and this is definitely Bane, especially in my squad, is someone you're not going to be able to get attached to fast.
Yeah, I see what you're going for with the muscle. I would want a little more character. Scarecrow, cool guy. We got to see him quite a bit. But like I didn't even notice if it was him in Dark Knight Rises or something. I'm sorry, I'm being an idiot. I've lost this one. I'll cede.
Go ahead.
No, I actually got nothing. I think
There's
Romero.
a minute 20 left on the clock. Anything you guys need to add, keep going.
I would just say,
Romero Joker's mustache sucks.
I think the Riddler's also showing, he needs a whole island just to work his box. And that was just to control Gotham. And aside from a few puzzles, I don't think he offers a lot else to the team. And I said Catwoman is great for climbing and some acrobatics, but Nuclear Man can fly. And he has that vulnerability, which fits perfectly into the world that Gunn is creating, and I think Aya tried to create.
All right, I will take the silence as we are done. So you guys do have 1 minute of a closing argument left on the board. It'll go to Joe first. Time starts when you begin speaking.
I think on a purely sort of 1v1 basis on the wild card, the muscle, the one with the plan and the brains, and the one that can actually maybe get into buildings, get into places. I think I've shown that Cesar Romero's Joker is more of the team player than Heath Ledger's would be. I think Jeep Swinston's Bane, even though he only says literally the words Bane, bomb in Batman and Robin, has that more established feel to him. The Riddler, while having the funny and quips, he's shown he needs a lot more to work. Just get Mr. Freeze some diamonds, he'll be fine. Catwoman, while she does provide those acrobatics and the sneakiness, I just think Nuclear Man's a little bit more blunt force about it, which I think is what Suicide Squad needs. And Cillian Murphy being the brains of the outfit, the one to stand back, the one to watch it all going on, is what appears that Idris Elba will be doing in the new Suicide Squad movie, which I am really looking forward to. But I just think this is a team that not only will work well together, will be a handful for Amanda Waller and Rick Flag, but enough for her to control, which is what she will want when putting a Suicide Squad team or a Task Force X together.
All right, and that is actually right on the dot. So that is a minute. And Jake, I will go to you for your 1 minute closing. Time starts when you begin speaking.
So all excellent points about team players, but Suicide Squad is not about team players. I went with the ones who I would want to see interact with each other. Like I said, I want to see that interaction. How does Harley interact with Heath Ledger's Joker? And how does Deathstroke fit into it, knowing Joker and Deathstroke have that vendetta with Batman? And then Riddler, I really did for the laughs, because who doesn't love Jim Carrey? And I think Catwoman is an interesting addition just for the thievery. And again, another Batman villain, someone who is particularly enraged at Batman. So this is kind of like the Batman Suicide Squad that I put together. I'll say time.
All right. That will be it on round number 2. Gentlemen, thank you so much for that. I will go ahead and drop both of you to the back, and I will bring in our judges in their order this time. First up, Mr. JB3, Henry Sanchez, and Austin Howell. All right. Not a lot really to clean up for that match, simply because it's all opinion. I can tell you that a number of these movies suck. That's all I can confidently say. Which would kind of make for a good Suicide Squad. But with that said, I'm not the one who needs to make a call. It is these gentlemen. Are you all ready? The looks are telling me yes. Mr. JB3, I start with you in 30 seconds or less. You want it and what?
Yeah, so actually, so in the beginning of this, or towards the beginning parts of this question, I had Jake in the lead. Jake was really getting me, but Joe had this legendary attack in the back and forth debate section where he pretty much tore down Jake's whole answer, and to me, I've honestly never seen anything like it. So I gave it to Joe for that because he went hard, and I think he wanted to debate for a while.
All right, and Henry, I go to you for vote number 2. Who won it between Joe and Jake, and in 30 seconds or less, why?
This is definitely a good showing of experience with these open-ended questions and these creative ideas. And like he said, Joe just had a lot more to say back and forth, whether it's positive or negative for Jake. And I feel like he just kind of really won this by a lot. So I'm going Joe again.
All right. And so with that, that is 2 votes to Joe, meaning Joe will take point number 2. Gentlemen, thank you so much. I will see you again in the 3rd round as I take you all to the back and I bring back on our competitors. The match is not over yet. However, with a 2-0 lead, Joe is sitting pretty right now. But we move on to question number 3, which takes us from a genre that, in my opinion, is mimicking early comic book films in video game movies. And while it did take comic book movies a time to find consistency, video game movies are still searching for that sense of consistency and quality. So with that said, the easiest question to ask is, what is the worst video game film of all time? There's a bunch of them to check. I mean, if we want to go with Jake's earlier route of Rotten Tomatoes, it's got to be a world record number for 0% films in this category, or like single-digit films, with the positive reviews being, I was stoned, so fuck it. With that said, though, Jake, you are going to be up first for this one. You have 1 minute on the clock. The time will start when you begin speaking.
I am going with the abomination to film and video games that is the Super Mario Brothers movie. In my opinion, my brain instantly went to 3 places. Others being Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat Annihilation, but I just had to go with this one because ultimately those 2 have redeeming qualities. Super Mario Brothers does not have redeeming qualities, and I will start with that and see the time.
All right, absolutely. Joe, it moves on to you. 1 minute on the clock. Time starts when you begin speaking.
When we talk about video game movies, I think there's only a select few that make it into the category of good. Even then, there's usually the word actually thrown in there. To wade through the plethora of bad video game movies and single out one as the worst of all time is a task in itself, made all the more daunting by having to actually sit through them. My choice should come as no shock when I tell you the name of the director, the king of bad adaptations, Uwe Boll. My choice is Alone in the Dark, the Christian Slater-led dumpster fire. I shall see the rest of my time. There's quite a long quote I need to get into.
That is fair. I don't think any of our judges will argue we are dealing with 2 absolute piles of shit. But I guess we're going to have to debate over which one is technically worse. God help us if we get praise for one of these films. With that said, Jake, you are up first with your 2 minutes. Time starts when you begin speaking.
Oh, where to begin with the Super Mario Brothers movie? The terrible plot that's half written and half crapped out, and whatever else. The terrible acid themed everything. The creatures that aren't even resembling what they are supposed to be from the video game. I mean, this movie just destroyed, like, arguably the most beloved franchise of all time. Video game franchise, that is. Gosh, it's just so bad. So bad. And like I said, I can't think of anything about it that makes it okay. I will cede my time.
All right. Concise and to the point. Joe, you have 2 minutes on the clock. Can you get your quote out in that time?
Yeah.
All right. Time starts when you speak.
So instead of me arguing this, I'm going to hand over very briefly to the writer of the original screenplay, Blair Erickson. He had this to say. Thankfully, Dr. Bowl was able to hire his loyal team of hacks to crank out something much better than our crappy story, and add in all sorts of terrifying horror movie essentials like opening gateways to alternate dimensions, bimbo blonde archaeologists, sex scenes, mad scientists, slimy dog monsters, special army forces designed to battle slimy CG dog monsters, Tara Reid, Matrix slow motion gun battles, and car chases. Oh yeah, and a 10-minute opening backstory scroll read aloud to the illiterate audience, the only people able to successfully miss all of the negative reviews. Now, I know I may have attacked Rotten Tomatoes earlier as a rating system, but as a consensus, it's still useful to us because it tells you what percentage of people actually like the movie. Now, none of these have high scores, but IMDb, Super Mario's 4.0 to Alone in the Dark's 2.4. Rotten Tomatoes, Super Mario Brothers 15% to Alone in the Dark's 1%. Again, just a consensus of where the audience sort of sat around these movies. This movie's a goddamn dumpster fire. Super Mario Brothers is a dumpster fire, but it's a dumpster fire that you can watch because it's so bad that it's kind of good. It at least got an honest trailer about it, so at least there was something to talk about in it. And like they said in that, whoever writing that was doing all the drugs, and that's one way to enjoy it, I suppose.
Gotcha. On that topic, Bob Hoskins had said on multiple occasions that.
All right, hold on one second. Let me start the 4-minute timer.
Start the 4-minute timer.
My bad.
Sorry, you're good. You're good.
I was done.
No penalty. No penalty. I figured when you did the hand motion, you were receding.
Yeah, I was done.
All right, 4 minutes on the clock. Jake, talk about Bob Hoskins.
I'm actually excited on this one, apparently. He did say on multiple occasions in 2007 that it was the worst thing he's ever done in his life. Dennis Hopper has crapped all over it. Apparently, he was supposed to be there for 5 weeks. He had to be there for 17 weeks due to the ridiculous over-budgeting. Alone in the Dark is a bad movie based on a bad video game, whereas Super Mario Brothers is a terrifying evil monster based on a beloved franchise. So it ruins it more. It's terrible. They were on all the drugs. Maybe that would make that movie watchable, but I was not on those drugs, so Mario is not watchable. Alone in the Dark does give tremendous actors such as Stephen Dorff the ability to poo-poo Black Widow. So there's that. Alone in the Dark has a fantastic soundtrack if you're into that type of thing. It's got like Lacuna Coil and Nightwish on it, stuff like that.
I appreciate that, but look, no one here is arguing. I'm not for a second arguing that Super Mario Brothers is a good movie. I'm just saying it's not the worst video game movie of all time, and that's exactly the point I'm trying to make. Look, Uwe Boll's the director. Tara Reid is an archaeologist. I think that tells you everything you need to know about Alone in the Dark. Super Mario Brothers, it's what happens when you give an existing IP to a pair of up-and-coming directors who are much more involved in sort of auteur cinema. If you give them that free reign, you're going to get, there are a lot of political undertones that if it didn't have the Super Mario Brothers logo on it, could make it an interesting movie at the very least. But the fact of the matter is, Alone in the Dark, like you said, it's a bad video game and it's a bad movie. There's no inclination to make that in the first place. It makes no sense as to why they would make it. Why would they give it to Uwe Ball if they did want to make it? It makes no sense. The whole movie is a paradox.
Uwe Ball is kind of the video game director, though. And even though they haven't always been good, he's got quite a few of them. So I think that's why they keep trying. But yeah, I just don't think there are redeeming qualities to Alone in the Dark there are not redeeming qualities to Mario where there are a couple for Alone in the Dark.
And I will counter that just by simply saying that the counterpoints to Super Mario Brothers, the redeeming qualities is it does have Bob Hoskins, it does have John Leguizamo, it does have that so bad it's good reputation to it. It does have that. You can probably watch this while high. Not me, but you could probably do that. But it's a cliche, but it's true. Alone in the Dark is bad, just bad. In terms of actual quality, we are talking very, very fine margins here between Super Mario Brothers and Alone in the Dark. But I just think, where Super Mario Brothers is a truly awful movie, it has that reputation now because it's so bad it's good. Whereas Alone in the Dark, it's just been forgotten because it's so bad. It's just move on from it. I'm not even going to watch this because, let's watch Sharknado because it's so bad it's good. I can't even put this on at any stage of life.
And I would argue that is the better film still. So bad it's good, or so bad it's good is so bad it's good, whereas just bad is just bad. So I would put so bad it's good down here, whereas just bad is up here, and that I would say that would be why Mario is the worst film.
Tara Reid's an archaeologist.
I was muted. I'll get that down eventually. Sorry. I took the silence as a wrap up, but there was 4 seconds left. So yes, Tara Reid is an archaeologist. Judges, you can count that. With that said, 1 minute left on the clock. Jake, it does go to you. Time starts when you begin speaking for your closing.
Yep, just gonna run them all back. The plot of Mario is terrible. The design is terrible. The characters are terrible. The great actors are terrible. And Alone in the Dark is just bad, whereas Mario is horrible. And like I said, there are redeeming qualities to Alone in the Dark. There are not to Mario. Time.
All right. Joe, you have 1 minute on the clock left to close. Time starts when you begin speaking.
I don't believe there are any redeeming qualities to Alone in the Dark. It's poorly directed. It's poorly cast. It's poorly adapted from the video game. Whereas Super Mario Brothers, like I said, it does have that reputation of so bad it's good, which means it has something in it that people will get to see, even if it's not the intention of the film itself. Actually putting it on, there is something that you can watch and get enjoyment out of, because you're getting an enjoyment out of it. Therefore, there is some pleasure to be derived from watching it. Whereas with Alone in the Dark, there is no pleasure to be derived from watching it. It has been forgotten. Like the many Uwe Boll movies that have come out in the time, it has just fallen away. And that's the point of what is the worst. It is the one that cannot be redeemed. It's the one that just gets forgotten about. It's stuck on that 1%. It's 1% of people enjoy this movie. 15% of people enjoy that because they probably wrote those reviews because they watched it while on all the drugs, like the writers and directors were.
All right. That is going to be time on that fight. Once again, guys, another great round. I'll go ahead and drop both of you to the back as we bring on our judges, Mr. Henry Sanchez, Austin Howell, and JB3. And I'll give you guys a couple of extra seconds to finish up. I believe if I have my facts correct, just thinking about this, me personally, I would have to go with another one of Uwe Boll's films, House of the Dead, simply because it's the only film dumb enough to randomly intersperse shots of the video game into the movie. I don't know who on earth told that asshole that was a good idea, but it should never have been done, and it hasn't been done since. With that said, that is not a film we are discussing here. Just another one of his shit films, and the shit film that started it all, Super Mario Brothers. With that said, gentlemen, as you look ready, Henry, I go to you first. Where does your vote go for this one, and in 30 seconds or less, why?
So it's tough. Obviously this is a subjective game, but a lot of the arguments back and forth were subjective, like, oh, this is bad acting, directing, but not many specifics from either of them, except for the fact that Tara Reid's an archaeologist. I guess that's the only specific given. This is the first time I've ever heard this, when Jake said, yeah, there's so bad that it's good is still technically worse than just bad. You know what I mean? It's still so bad. So on the level, I was really surprised. I've never heard that argument before, and I've never seen Alone in the Dark, never even heard of it, and Joe didn't really describe anything of the movie to really, explain to me why it's so bad, and I just got more from Jake, so I'm giving the point to Jake.
All right, so that's one vote to Jake. Austin, who does your vote go to, and in 30 seconds or less, why?
I'm in kind of a similar vein in that I thought Joe had the best opening argument and he had a really strong start, but I really like Jake's point, especially that won me over, about a good video game having a bad movie versus a bad video game for a bad movie and keeping the expectations low. So I really like the approach that Jake took. So my point goes to Jake.
All right, and with that, JB3, though I love your shiny head, we will go ahead and send all of you to the back. As that will be the first point to Jake on this one, as it goes 2-1 heading into round number 4. At this point, anything can happen as we move on to question number 4. And for this fourth question, I decided to go with Obviously, especially with the pandemic happening, streaming is more and more a thing, and more original streaming services are getting in the game of producing their own original films. And I feel like the natural instinct is for everyone to look at Netflix first and talk about Netflix's original films. I mean, they're now at the point where they've had multiple Oscar nominees, some Oscar winners. They're producing great stuff. They're past the days of their best movie being something like fucking Bright or anything mediocre like that. But I decided to go with a different streaming service, one that I think is still very much in the conversation, but people forget about a little more. And that is, what is the best movie produced by Amazon Studios? They are a film studio that's been around for the last few years. They do have a Best Picture nominee under their belt for Manchester by the Sea. I only say that because it's not one of the selections. But with that said, Joe, you opted to go first on this one, so I acquiesce to you to start the round off. Time starts when you begin speaking.
So despite being around for a while now, there is still some trepidation around movies released straight to streaming. They sometimes conjure up memories of straight to DVD, direct to video movies that are put on, and then they're, the idea they're put on streaming so they can't be judged on box office. However, Regina King's One Night in Miami is an incredible movie. It's a movie that is one of the best of 2020, and in my opinion, the best movie released by Amazon Studios. I believe this movie has the potential to kick off a whole new genre of putting together real-life people in a fictional setting. I think the craft that Regina King put into this movie is absolutely phenomenal. I think the performances are amazing, the writing is phenomenal, and the overall message and point of the movie is just one that really resonates, especially in 2020. It's a perfect movie for its time. I think it would get even more love had it had a full theatrical release, but pandemic aside, we couldn't get that.
Absolutely, and on the dot there. And Jake, I will head to you as well. Time starts when you begin speaking.
I went with the Spike Lee joint Chirac. 2015, badass ladies doing badass lady things. Tiana Paris, Nick Cannon, Sam Jackson's talking in it. Who doesn't love that? And I will cede my time for now.
All right. Short and sweet, very basic intro there. For anyone questioning the rule around theatrical releases, it should be said, out of all the streaming studios, Amazon has always been the most friendly theatrically. Both these films did receive a theatrical release. So if you have any problem with the streaming service question, quite frankly, I won't say fuck off, but no, you shouldn't. With that said, Joe, I go back to you. You have 2 minutes to flush out your argument. Your time starts when you begin speaking.
So I watched One Night in Miami for the first time, and I was just completely blown away by some of the performances and the messages of this movie. Chirac, for those who don't know, is a modern-day adaptation of a Greek play named, I'm going to butcher this, Lysistrata. The play itself is a very subtle way of getting its message across, but Chirac hits you on the head like it's Thor wielding Mjolnir. King, on the other hand, crafts a movie that leaves everything open. The biggest conflict of this movie, it's between Malcolm X and Sam Cooke. Both want the same thing, but they both have very different approaches about getting it. There's a lot of conversation around their methods and their way of handling things, their way of doing things. But the beauty of this movie is that it leaves everything open, and it doesn't say that this person's way is right and this person's way is wrong. It lets the audience decide. It says, this is my point, this is my point, I understand your point, I understand your point, and it just puts the four amazing characters into this room together and have this discussion. Everything else that surrounds it, it's all around their lives and their influences on each other. But when they get in that room together, the conversations that they have, you're just glued to the screen, which with a streaming movie is a very difficult thing to do because your phone is right there. There's no other people in an audience that you can annoy. You can just get your phone out. But the movie showcases both viewpoints with such exquisite delicacy that by the end of it, it doesn't say what is right and what is wrong. It treats its audience like an adult. And I think that's where the difference between that and Chirac lies, is that Chirac hits its audience over the head with its message. Although it's an important message, I think Regina King treats it in a much more mature and adult way, which for a first-time director is incredible, especially when compared with someone who is as incredible as Spike Lee is.
All right. I will take that pause as a seating. Jake, you have 2 minutes on the clock to flesh out your argument. Time starts when you begin speaking.
For me, Chirac was kind of when Spike Lee first started to come back in a way. I don't know how I want to say that, but like I said, we got badass ladies doing. For those who don't know the plot, they are withholding sex from their gangster boyfriends because they want them to stop killing the crap out of each other, which is a good idea, I think. Maybe it does get a little heavy-handed with the message, but if I want to watch a bunch of dudes talking in a room, I'll just watch a Kevin Smith movie. I don't need One Night in Miami for that. Nick Cannon it's his best performance for sure. And we get Dave Chappelle in this movie, and our boy Jay Washington is in it. So who doesn't love that? What else do I have? I will cede.
All right, absolutely fine. With that said, 4 minutes on the clock, guys, for the open debate round. The time starts when one of you speaks.
I see your point. If I want to watch a bunch of guys talking, I would watch a Kevin Smith movie because I love Kevin Smith movies. The thing is, when I want to watch people talking about something that's actually important and prescient, I will watch One Night in Miami, because as much as I do care about the innocent workers on the Death Star, sometimes it is also important to talk about race, especially to do it in a way that is clever. And talk about badass ladies in your movie. Mine has a badass lady behind the camera, and because Regina King is absolutely masterful in her craft here. I think Chirac struggles to find its feet, and it's remarkably inconsistent. You know, when you compare it to superior joints like Do the Right Thing, Defy of Bloods, and Black Klansman, but also other Amazon movies like The Big Sick, You Were Never Really Here, Sound of Metal, and One Night in Miami, it pales in comparison.
Does anyone think Malcolm X looks weirdly like Dan Earl in that movie? I got nothing on it. I got nothing on this one.
I think One Night in Miami is just it's just a wonderfully simple idea, and it's something that has that potential to kick off a whole another genre. Because in reality, you know, these four people did not spend one night together discussing their issues in a motel room in Miami, but the fact that she crafts it in such a way that you can believe that these people had this conversation, you could believe that if these people existed in 2020, they'd be having the same conversation. I think it's phenomenally written, phenomenally directed, and just a great idea, and something that I think is the right place. It could be a jumping off point for all sorts of real life people to be shown in a fictional setting coming together. What would it be like if these people meet? And I think Regina King nails the sort of conversations that they would be having, because it's incredible. And I do think Spike Lee has had superior joints, I think, before and since Chirac, and I think Amazon Studios has had superior movies to Chirac. Big Sick, Sound of Metal, You Were Never Really Here, all superior movies to Chirac. Chirac, it's an important message, but especially for someone like Spike Lee behind the camera, it's far too on the nose.
All right. So only because Jake made the comment before, there is a minute 40 left on the clock. Unless either of you have anything to add, I can kill it early if you'd like, and we can go to closing.
I think I got nothing.
Okay. All right. That's perfectly fine, guys. All right. So 1 minute to close. Joe, you are up first on that closing. The time starts when you begin speaking.
So just to summarize, really, One Night in Miami is a beautifully crafted movie. It's a movie that is very unique and very new in terms of its style. I think it's a very important movie. I think it treats its audience like grown-ups. It treats its audience as someone who wants to hear this message, but she's mature enough already as a filmmaker, despite it being a debut, to just really just leave it open-ended, whereas Chirac struggles to find its feet, is remarkably inconsistent, which is a surprise when you consider someone like Spike Lee is behind the camera. Some of the films he has made are absolutely phenomenal and go straight onto the rewatch list, but this is just not one of them.
All right, I'll take that as a seed, which means we move over to Jake for the final point of the round. You have 1 minute on the clock to close. Time starts when you begin speaking.
I will say, great game, Joe. Thanks for playing with me. And I will cede my time after that.
All right. Fair enough, man. All right, I'll go ahead and drop you guys to the back as we bring on the judges. Still off camera. There we go. All right, we have Austin, Mr. JB3, and Mr. Henry Sanchez on screen. All right, so if you guys are ready, we can go ahead and go to the judges' rulings. It looks like you guys are, which means, Austin, I will shift to you first in 30 seconds or less. Who won it for you and what won it?
Well, one competitor made arguments and the other one gave up, so it's Joe, obviously.
Oh. And JB3, I'll go to you.
Yep, Austin might as well go ahead and throw that third hand down to the mat because the third points is going to have to go to Joe.
3.
Yeah, it was he pretty much said it in the last bit. He just said congratulations, good game. He didn't have much else to argue. Joe did bring out a lot of good points though, so good job, and a great match.
All right, so with that, I'll go ahead and drop our judges to the back and your winner with a score of 3-1, it is Hot Fuzz Joe Farrelly. There he is. All right, so let's get into it. Joe, obviously, congratulations on the win, coming back to the Movie Battleground. First off, just, how are you feeling, man, getting back into it? I know you were one of the people who definitely did, in speaking to anyone from the channel, talked about wanting it to come back, wanting to play again. So how does it feel to have gotten in there and played?
Look, sometimes I bite and I like to have an argument. So it's nice to have somewhere where I can come and do it and it's encouraged and not frowned upon. And, well, given the name below and the date of this match, the Euros have been over for weeks now. So maybe it's coming home, isn't talking about the Euros or football. Maybe it's talking about the championship. Maybe it's talking about the belt.
Maybe it is. Maybe it is. Maybe it is. Maybe both are coming home. I certainly wouldn't hate to see it between the two. I'm going for England, certainly. I know more of their players. I watch Premier League. With that said, so let's go ahead and get into it, man. So we do have your next matchup, sort of. We know one of two who you will be playing, as you will be playing the winner of either Mr. Hunter Chambliss, or if you want to talk about another man who has titled you Mr. Kevin Poss, our TM Geek Commissioner. They will be playing each other in their first match. The winner of that goes up against you in the first round of our 1-0 bracket of the tournament. What do you know about either of these guys, and how are you feeling? Which way are you leaning towards?
Well, both run trivia leagues that I have won titles in. One I still have the title in, at least for now. In terms of debate, again, these, if they're going to get to a 1-0 position, then they clearly, they know what they're doing. They've been in this world, for a while now. Again, it depends on the questions. It depends on whether I've seen the movies or whether I can bluff that I've seen the movies, which apparently I couldn't do here. With the point I didn't win because I was not going to watch Alone in the Dark. It wasn't going to happen. I saw it ranked #1 worst of all time on one list and went, yeah, I'll go with that. Mario was like 15 on that list. So I was like, okay, I can maybe make a point here. But I enjoy doing this. It's got that wonderful difference from trivia, where trivia, you don't know what's coming up and you can prep all you want, but you don't know what's coming. Here, you know exactly what's coming. You can do all the prep. You can figure out where the attacks are coming from. And it just depends on whether you can get your words out right. It depends on whether your opponent comes up with something that you haven't prepared for. I do just enjoy that, the more preparedness I can be for this. But I'm looking forward to it. I like Hunter. I like Kevin. Both fantastic guys. So I'm looking forward to it. And friendly argument, it should be fun.
Absolutely. Well, Joe, thank you so much for being a part of this, man. Welcome back to the Battleground.
Thanks for having me back.
The victory. Absolutely. I wouldn't imagine it without you. After making you wait that long, I couldn't imagine not having you here. So go ahead and drop you to the back. We will see you next time as we bring in his competitor, Mr. Jake Riese. And yeah, man, to say you played a former champ is fair. What I will say is, obviously, and I know a number of the people in the back, there's tons of people who want to help you get better at it, but it's your first time. You know, it's not even, I mean, we have some people that are competing who have debated in other types of leagues but have never done Battleground. This is just straight up new to you. You got paired against a guy who won the belt, so it was against you from the offset. What I would say is you got a point, and you got a point that even he seeded you should have won on all fronts, and that in and of itself is a small victory. How are you feeling?
I feel fantastic. Getting a point, like you said, is awesome. That I nicked one judge in Bond on him, that's amazing to me. Because I didn't think I had a chance in that. And yeah, I've obviously got to get a lot better. Got to do better preparation, and for sure watch the movies. Now that it's over, I can say that I've only seen Mario and One Night in Miami. I haven't seen those Bond movies. I haven't seen the perfect whatever crap hole Alone in the Dark. I mean, I've seen some of the DC stuff as well, obviously, but so yeah, if I can watch the movies, make more concise points, and fill more time better. Is that how words work? I don't word good always.
No, absolutely. You have the ground level there to get better at this. You have the drive to want to get better, and you're already making good points on how to improve, which shows something. Well, Jake, thank you so much for being here, brother. It was good to have you for your first time, and we will see you for your second match as soon as it can happen, with whatever, like, what is there, 12 more matches before we can even start that? Yeah, there's a lot of shit. So I will see you next time, man. And guys, with that, that is another edition of Movie Battleground. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in. We had not one, but 4 competitive matches go up this week. So much for watching. Please be sure to rate, comment, subscribe. Check out all the stuff on TMG. I want to give a special thank you to all of my judges, Austin Howe, JB3, and Henry Sanchez. All of them have YouTube channels of their own or are involved in YouTube channels. So be sure to check out the content that they are a part of. Support the people in the community, and support us. We will be back next week. My name is Aaron Knoll, and on behalf of TMG, we'll see you next time on the Battleground. Take care.